and body. They have very, very little air resistance. Oh, thank you. It's never a day working birds unless one gets on my shoe. And so when they're diving, they're able to accelerate really incredibly and reach those speeds. So, very, very skilled little birds.
Fastest bird in the world, you said?
Yes. Yeah. Fastest animal on the planet.
Wow.
And often people say like cheetahs are the fastest animal, and that's only because a lot of people consider these guys to be cheaters because they're not running or sprinting to get that speed, but rather diving. And they'll actually, in those dives, it's how they're hunting, so they'll dive down, they'll slam into prey using their chest, or grab them and punch them with their feet, and sometimes they'll go for larger prey like pelicans and swans and herons, and the way that they take them down is they essentially try to put them in a nosedive. So they'll grab their wing or grab their body and pull them down to try to get them spiraling down into the ground.
Wow.
So, pretty impressive, yeah.
They have like a reinforced breastbone?
Yeah.
For slamming, or?
So it's pretty similar to the other birds, but its structure is different from our chest bones. Our chest bones are very flat, so they don't have much room for impact. These guys have this, if you've ever looked at like a chicken, they have this sharp bone, so it's really good for taking that impact, and it's sort of padded with all of that muscle. So when they slam into something, if they slammed into something going like 300 kilometers an hour, it would probably cause damage if they were hitting a wall. The goal with them is, because of the structure of that heel, that chest bone, if they're going for something like a swan or a duck or a pigeon, and they aim for its neck, and they're going 200 kilometers per hour, they're going to slice clean through, and that neck is going to give way before their body gives way. Oh, no, we feel some wind now. We're very excited. I love Beagle Bird. He really likes to feel the wind. He really won't take off, but he just likes to flap. Yeah. Show off a little bit.
What do you got?
Oh yeah, look at all those guys. A bunch of crows, it looks like. Holy. Yeah. Or maybe pigeons. My ID when it doesn't come to raptors isn't as good, so if it's not a hawk or an eagle or something, don't take my full word for it.
What do you got if you let?
Yes, they are very well adapted to cities, and a lot of that comes from the fact that naturally these guys love nesting on cliffs and they love hunting pigeons and ducks, and cities have an abundance of cliffs and an abundance of pigeons, so it's a really good place where a lot of them can nest close to each other, and there's a lot of food, and a lot of those domesticated pigeons are a little bit better fed and easier to catch than some wild doves and pigeons. So it's a good spot for them, and you'll see them diving down. They're very maneuverable, so they can kind of sort of maneuver through those buildings and things like that. And they've even learned that they can actually just chase pigeons into windows, and it does the work for them. So they're very, very smart, and they do really well in those areas. You'll see a lot of them in like Vancouver and things like that. Oh, big grouse. Nice. Yeah, he's a very lovely bird.
Is that the...
He is, yeah.
So if they go after a pelican, that's a lot of meat.
It's a lot of meat. He can't eat it all for sure. They can only fit about a third of their body weight on themselves, so they only digest about 10% per day, but they do have their stomach. They also have a crop on their chest. Have you ever seen a bird, especially eagles, when it comes to the salmon season, where they have this huge lump on the bottom of their neck? That's their crop, and they're fitting salmon in there. So it's like a gizzard that chickens and turkeys have, but a little different because it's not digesting or pulling that food. It's actually just sitting in there. But if he catches something big, he can fill that up. And a lot of the reason these guys will take down things like pelicans is they're in a dive and it's flying below them. They may as well go for it. It's pretty low risk for them because as long as they can stay away from it, they'll literally just hover by it, sneak in, grab it, twist it so that it starts nosediving, and then follow it down and keep doing that so it accelerates into the ground. And so doing something like that, it's a lot more low risk than actually tackling something and having to fight something that's 10 times your size. But yeah, they typically don't get a whole lot of meat from it. But it's kind of like whatever's available.
Is this the species you generally see on like city lights, like kind of by the Swanson terminal on the highway? You can see them.
So on the lights, sometimes you'll see more red-tailed hawks hanging out on there because they really like the roadkill cafe.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's lots of rabbits. People throw banana peels, apple cores out the window, and then there's rabbits and rats and stuff by there.
Yeah.
These guys Typically, they're a little bit more elusive. Once you get into the city, you'll see them. If you keep your eyes in the sky when you're in a city, you'll see them on the corners of skyscrapers. And under the Lionsgate Bridge, there's actually a lot of them. If you're ever down by Granville, too, under that bridge there, you'll sometimes see them hanging out. You'll see like a spot where there's like no cormorants on one side of the bridge for some reason, and it's typically because there's a little peregrine hanging. So they're pretty sneaky, and like they're not that big. Like the red tails stand about double his size, and they're typically kind of more out in the open. Where these guys are higher. Like when you see them, even in a forest, they're like at the very top of a tree. They almost blend in because they just look like a little extension of the tree. Showing off. He's very gorgeous. Yeah, Cooper socks. Yeah, you'll see those guys. We have one that we work with at our center. Typically, you'll see those guys more in the forest. They're very elusive. I mean, really, the only times that I see them is when they're flying tree to tree. Otherwise, they can be so hard to spot. But depends on where you go to, because Cooper's hawks around here are about his size. If you go to like the Okanagan, there's Cooper's hawks are about the same size as the red tails that we have around here. I have no idea why they're huge out there, but the first time I saw a Cooper's hawk in the Okanagan, I was kind of shocked.
Take off. I want to take off.
It's a nice little fan when it gets hot out. And really, he's just kind of excited. He's flapping his feathers. He's not planning on going anywhere. Like he's not taking off his glove or anything. He's just feeling the wind. So the prairie falcons, different species, and they're quite a bit lighter. So they're more of kind of like a darker brown than this, but a brown, like a very clear brown on their back. And they almost look like a small saker falcon. A lot more brown and a lot less, like peregrines often have this sort of jet blue kind of black on their body, or like a very like a Russian blue gray on their backs, and so they're they have a lot of those blue hints in a lot of their feathers, and they're more grayscale in that regard. Whereas the prairie falcons typically have a lot more like even their body, rather than being this sort of orange color. The peregrines are typically like orange or they're white. The prairie falcons are like this really light tan color on their body with some brown spotting, and then that brown on their wings. So they're more like tan and brown, but they are pretty similar in size. I think the prairie falcons are a little bit bigger than most peregrines, depending on what subspecies. Like they're a little bit bigger than him, but not as big as a Shaheen peregrine, which is pretty massive.
I know, I saw that. That was cool. He's looking right at me.
He'd come back. So we actually fly him freely. He's not flying right now just because he's having a season off right now. So he gets all the food that he wants for a season. Basically, it's filled. So right now he's full.